My name is Christy Busby, and you are about to listen to the next episode of my podcast called Fate, From Atheism to Enlightenment. So come on in, join me. We're going to talk about it all, from atheism to enlightenment. Alrighty, guys, here we go. Get ready, and welcome to your fate. Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of Fate. How's everybody doing out there? On today's show, I have a very special guest all the way from the UK. He has been on the BBC's Housebusters for his Feng Shui expertise. He is a guru when it comes to the Chinese Zodiac. I'm very excited to have him on the show. Richard Ashworth, welcome to your fate, my friend. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, thanks, Christy. That's a lovely introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I have not done a show yet about Feng Shui, Chinese metaphysics, the Zodiac. I'm not very familiar with it, but I'm fascinated. And I always like to start off with a little bit of history behind how you got here. So
Okay.
how did you come to be the Chinese Imperial Feng Shui of the UK? How did that happen in your life, my friend?
Well, I've been weird a long time.
I love it.
And I worked with a lot of strange teachers and gurus and stuff over the last 40 years or so. And I guess I was on a kind of a search for a model for healing, if you like. I mean, if by healing we mean a spectrum that goes at one end is physical change and the other end is performance enhancement, and in the middle is perhaps just cheering people up. I'd been looking for a model to do that for a long time, but more than 20 years. And I had studied with some brilliant people, brilliant and quite strange people, who'd had the 6 rules of that and the 4 principles of this and the 5 whatever you do is about that, which I don't dismiss at all. But they were kind of reinventing the wheel. And when I found the Chinese model, what's called the Ganzi cycle, which I'll explain in a second, it blew my mind, because here was a method of touching people's souls, if you like, and dealing with the situation, emotional, physical, psychological, historic, future, and so on, that had been in use for thousands of years already. So it kind of blew my mind. I didn't need to invent anything. But to answer your question, how I got there, I was doing a workshop with actually an American guru, whatever, facilitator, called Chuck Spezzano, who is a Philadelphia Italian, works out of Maui. And we were working on biblical archetypes. Now, were you brought up well? I mean, do you know your Bible?
I mean, I have to tell you, I don't know the Bible very well. I was an atheist for most of my life, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, do I know some stories of the Bible because I was made to go to church when I was young 3 times a week? Yes, but could I quote scripture? No, I'm not. I'm not in that world.
I was actually very lucky, as my father was away in the Navy a lot of the time, and sometimes he'd be back for the weekends. And when I was a small boy, in the nicest possible way, he wanted my mother's attention. So I ended up going to church a lot when I was very young, when I was, less than 7, and Sunday school as well. And I loved it, but I didn't have a suffer being indoctrinated at all. My dad was an aggressive atheist, and my mother was Jewish, stroke Catholic Irish. Neither of them were interested, and I learned a great deal about the Bible, which is a wonderful, wise, helpful piece of work. But I'm not a Christian in that sense at all. Anyway, I'm really good at Bible study. If you follow what I'm saying. Anyway, we were dealing with biblical archetypes in 1993, the time of Desert Storm, and the idea was if we address the biblical archetypes, the source of the whole thing, we might possibly deal with the conflict. So the idea was we prevent World War III. I'm prepared to accept thanks on a postcard. But what I found in that process was we looked at the 1930s in comparison with the 1990s, and there were so many parallels. And at that point, someone said to me, do you not know that the Chinese Ganzi cycle, the stem and branch cycle, runs for 60 years? So you would expect parallels. And it blew my mind. That changed my life. BaZi, if you like, is Feng Shui of time as opposed to Feng Shui of space.
I had never heard of the term BaZi. Is that the correct pronunciation, BaZi?
No, it's very wrong, but it's the way I do it. we, we should probably say BaZi, but I make no claim to pronounce Chinese well.
Batsa. Okay, well, I'll roll in that direction. Batsa. What is Batsa? How does it relate to Feng Shui or the Chinese Zodiac? Please talk to me like I'm a moron when it comes to these things, but can you tell me a little overview of exactly what that is, and is it the same as the Chinese Zodiac, or is BaZi? I'm gonna have to say BaZi. I'm sorry.
Like you.
Okay, I'm gonna say BaZi. It's BaZi with Busby today. Can you talk to me a little bit about exactly what these concepts are?
If the answer to your question is it the Chinese Zodiac, broadly is yes.
Okay.
But a BaZi is a way of plotting a moment. If you like, it's a snapshot of a moment in time. And because the Chinese elements, that is wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, appear, reduce in power, disappear, come back again, cyclically, predictably, this snapshot, which consists of 4 pairs of characters, can be run backwards to see what might have preceded things, and forward to see what's likely to happen. If it is someone's date of birth, it may tell us things about their history, their family history, DNA patterns, those kinds of things. It may tell us about their parents. It may tell us about their education. It may tell us about their true love. It may tell us about physical strengths and weaknesses. And particularly, you were asking earlier about moments of decision, which I think is the most important thing.
I mean, when I was reading the book, because I did read parts of your book, it was very hard for me to chew on because I was so unfamiliar with so much of the verbiage and everything that it was like it was above me in a lot of ways.
Okay.
But I did think it was very interesting when you were talking about in the book that you could plot these things to the point where you could unchoose a moment in your life. And I thought that was like next level fascinating. Can you talk a little bit about what exactly that means? How do you unchoose, or how do you change something that's happened? Or is that what you're talking about here?
Well, we can sometimes actually, in effect, change it, but we can almost always change the meaning of it. So a part of the BaZi is a thing called the Big F.A.T.E or the luck pillars, which the Big F.A.T.E is the moment a child arrives. And yours is very early, by the way. Yours speaks of birth trauma or something like that. Very, very early. But it's the moment the child arrives. The child, if you like, becomes conscious. The child realizes they're not part of their mother. And it can broadly start at 0. Yours virtually does, very, very early, about 4 months. Or it can be as late as 10 years and 4 months. And it will be... So you want to say something?
So I just so I understand, or what you just told me is that 4 months in my mother's womb, I was aware that I was conscious and separate from my mother. Is that what you just said to me?
No, 4 months out in the air.
4 minutes in the air. Okay, got it.
Old. 4 months old.
Still, that's very, very young to think that, I would think.
Well, who knows? I have 6 children and 9 grandchildren, so I've had the opportunity to observe an awful lot of kids. My eldest daughter gave birth only, whatever it was, 10, 11 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. You'll have to show you the pictures in a minute, but I'm not going to do that with you. There is no question. Kids are there much, much earlier than we used to be told. I mean, with my kids, I was talking to them when they were in the womb, when we had conversations. They knew what I was talking about. I knew what there was definitely conversation going on. They were definitely there. But what I'm saying is something slightly different, which is that sometimes we may not actually arrive until we're 8 or 9 or so. And sometimes, when I say arrive, I don't mean that you're a zombie until then. What I mean is there is a particular thing that gets you to wake up to what your purpose is, to who you are. And sometimes that is very traumatic. It is always psychologically important. So in your case, it happens at 4 months, which is quite unusual. It's very, very early. Indicates either difficulty in birth, absence of parents, something of that sort. But it definitely means that you arrived early. And I've now talked to, I think you're my fourth American podcaster to talk to, if that's the right term.
Yeah.
You were born around midnight. It seems to be that being born about midnight makes you a podcaster. It's really interesting, American podcasters, because it's the time of water and so on. But anyway, I'm digressing. The moment that we enter the big fate is often traumatic. So very often it will be things like going to school, our parents separating, upset at home, financial problems, because kids tend to think that they did it, that it's their fault. When families separate, the battle between the parents, the battleground is the children. So very often it's that kind of thing. We make a decision very early on. And very often, but not always, that decision is, I'm not all right. And I'm not the first person to suggest that happens early on, as of course, that is these days a psychological truism, isn't it? That kids tend to go, I'm not all right. And the second decision, what the BaZi does is to suggest about the time that it happens. And the second decision is something like the world is screwed. Very often, not always. And the third decision, very often, again, the third pillar, which will be around 30, 10 years out of the way, is not only is the world screwed, I'm bad, but there's nothing I can do about it. And we can go back to those points and we can get the person today to look down the corridor of years, see themselves at that age and adjust. And it affects, however you want to hear this, it affects both ends of that transaction.
Are you saying that it affects the timeline in
Yeah.
a way?
Yes, that's the right word. Yeah.
That's pretty fascinating to can you give me an example of what that looks like at all? Like,
Yes, I can. I'm doing it quite often. I recently worked. I'll run with this. I think this one will probably give you an idea. I recently worked with a lady whose parents were violent. Her father was constantly violent with her mother, and the big fate calculation suggested that it happened around her 7th birthday, and it proved to be pretty much exactly right. And there were things happening in her life which I won't go into, which I suggest, and you don't have to buy this, came out of a decision she made at that point, which was that nothing she could do about the violence that her father was perpetrating on her mother. And we hit that point precisely. And we then did some stuff. I mean, I obviously can't, I have to keep confidence in this, but we then did some work which appears to have settled things in the rest of her life that I would say are related to the decision she made at that point, which is they're going to shout at each other. There's going to be violence. Nothing I can do except stick my fingers in my ears. Repercussions 40, 50, 60 years later, now appearing to quieten down by simply going to that place. I call it restoring to factory settings.
I mean, this is new news to me. This is exciting kind of stuff. So are you saying in essence, if when you go into somebody's BaZi and you look at their overall life, if there is a trajectory, like if they had an illness at a certain point and they had a certain frame of mind, like maybe they couldn't see themselves healed or whatever, you could kind of transform um their feeling about that, and allow them to maybe get into a state of healing, or get into things their illness or their symptoms subsides, or like, what are the real ramifications of this?
Well, I have to be very careful what claims I make, and physical healing is something you really have to um, under promise and over deliver on. So I'm not going to be drawn to saying absolutely yes to that, but that's basically the idea. There is a level on which everything that is going to happen is already here, and there's a level on which everything that has happened remains here. So you can certainly take someone who is anxious today, just to take a very light situation, and put them in touch with the choice to become anxious when they were, say, 5 or 6, and get the person at 50 to talk to the person at 5 or 6 and point out that the way they bent themselves out of shape to compensate for what was going on probably was not a great idea. And that in point of fact, the adult has turned out to be in reasonable shape. And you can watch the adult, their kind of shoulders go down. It's like a weight falls from them. And I've had it reported back to me by them that they can see themselves at 5 or 6 going, you know what, I'm going to make a different decision. So however you want to interpret that, that is the kind of process that BaZi allows to happen.
Does that mean, in essence, that nothing's an accident and everything is predetermined? Because doesn't that feel like what the line of logic would lead you to? Don't you feel like nothing is really, we are destined to have a certain life or a certain trajectory? Or how do you rationalize that?
I,
How
I,
do you
avoid,
rationalize?
I avoid rationalization altogether. I think I've given up on causality altogether. But no, I'm not saying, I mean, the Chinese guys will talk about destiny and fate. I don't. I think that a really powerful change may sometimes involve being prepared to accept paradox. You know, the paradox that perhaps there is a path you're on, and also that you have free will. I don't claim to know beyond that.
Did you ever have your own spiritual awakening, or did you go through any kind of dark night of the soul, or were you just organically kind of attracted to this in a way, and you took on some teachers and you learned? Or what is your spiritual journey? What is your own belief system now, if you
Yeah.
don't mind me asking?
Well, as I say, I've been weird a long time. My mother said I used to tell her who was coming to the door. I mean, I'm not claiming that I could do that these days, but I was always I was reading all sorts of strange stuff, you know, when I was very young. I mean, I was reading people like Edgar Cayce and Lobsang Rampa when I was probably 7 or 8. Um, did I have a spiritual awakening? Well, I would say I was quite spiritual as a child, and I kind of lost it. I spent 22 years in financial services when I did the reverse of having a spiritual awakening. And I probably, had I not met my wife, Kila, and a couple of things happened, I'd probably be, if not physically dead, at least morally dead. But what actually woke me up was the death of one of my sisters.
That makes sense. I often say on this show, you have to be shaken to awaken sometimes, and when there's a traumatic event, it does lead a lot of times to having some sort of awakening to who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I am sorry about that though, because I have 2 sisters and I can't imagine having to go through anything like that. So
It was a long time ago, so it doesn't hurt in quite the same way. But it's really useful
mm,
because when I'm talking to people, I was working with some people a month or so ago who'd lost their university-age daughter 7 or 8 years before. And, I think that the conversation we had turned them around from the kind of pit of despair into something rather different. I mean, I guess you can't ask them, but I think that's what happened. But I am qualified to talk. That's what qualifies me in that
yeah.
sense, particular kind of scenario. I have some idea. I mean, I don't think I have an idea of what losing a child is. I think that's the very hardest experience there is. But I do have some experience of that kind of, bereavement.
Yeah. 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 Let's let's talk. What is more accurate? There's the Chinese zodiac, which there's a lot of animals that go into that, which is why your book is called I Talk to Animals,
Yep.
the definitive guide to the four pillars of destiny. Um, if you had to get a brief overview of what the Chinese zodiac is, as far as what is it entails, what would you say? I know it seems very that seems like a whole other podcast just to talk about what all the animals are, because there's a gazillion. But what's the big differences between, let's say, Western astrology zodiac and the Chinese astrology zodiac? And is the Chinese one more accurate than the ones we use, or how we do it in the United States? Do you know?
There is a dance for between the diviner and the divinatory system. So I'm not going to say either is a better system than the other. All I know is I don't understand Western astrology at all. And when I first came across BaZi, F.A.T.E, Four Pillars, whatever, it felt like a homecoming.
Mm.
And I think that I may see different things in a BaZi than someone else might. And it it is an interplay between me and it. So I wouldn't say either was a better system. But when I encountered the Chinese zodiac, which consists of what are called stems and branches. So this year, for instance, is a wood snake. The stem is wood and the branch is a snake. When I encountered that system, I could see stuff that, sometimes was, could be technically explicable and sometimes it wasn't, And I think, by the way, Western astrologers do the same thing. The really gifted ones, they will go with what the rules are, that this in trine means this ascendant and so on and so forth, and therefore you do this, this, and this, and then they'll fly. And on a good day, that's what I aim to do with the BaZi. I mean, your BaZi, for instance, to give you kind of spotlight here, since you were interested in knowing about your
Yeah.
BaZi, you are particularly fortunate, and the conditions of that is that your day pillar, which really describes your soul, is a metal horse, and the metal horse is the righter of wrongs.
Oh, that makes sense to me. I have a strong sense of justice inside me that I don't mind speaking out when I see injustices or things like that.
I'd encourage you to treat that as your calling, particularly if you have a constituency, because if you do, people are listening to you, and you can use your reach to change the world. That's what metal horses do.
I mean, I'm kind of feel like this podcast is evolving in its own right. I've had a health crisis. It woke me up. I started a podcast. I was an atheist forever. Now I've like been talking about all these different spiritual concepts, and the last year and a half or so, it's been like a school for me in a lot of ways. And now I'm trying to figure out what the next iteration of this show is. Where am I taking this show? And I want to start illuminating people and allowing them to see things in a way that would unlock their pre-programmed minds into expanding into something beyond what they normally would consider possible and or a part of our world. And I want to kind of try to be somebody that is helping people awaken to
Well,
what we are.
yeah, I hear that. I hear the truth in that. I mean, I hear that you're a very interesting package in that sense, because you are a nice looking young woman with a nice kind of folksy kind of approach, which is not really the package that people expect in the world of woo woo, which is
Yeah.
which is very, very powerful. Your your BaZi is unusual because your year and your month are both what I would call water oxes. So the pillar is water ox. So your year of birth is a water ox. I won't give that away. And the month, your month of birth is also a water ox. The ox is about a number of things, but one is they are the most sensitive, and they are the ones who may have psychic powers, or ability to feel deeply. I mean, and really, psychic powers and ability to feel deeply are kind of the same thing. I did quite a lot of work back in the day with a lady called Michelle Knight, who's a renowned astrologer and psychic. And we talked about this. She said, "Why don't you come out as a psychic?" And I said, "Because I don't want to, and I'm not consistent," which she is. And what we established was that it was just a question of feeling, first of all, how we feel, not trying not to feel it, but feeling it. And if you do that consistently, you can feel other people's stuff. A double ox does that in spades. That's who you are.
I mean, I do have the. It's so weird you're saying this to, to me because it's resonating in a lot of different ways. And I'm sure this is not shocking for you, but people keep telling me that I have like abilities, that I have these things, and I haven't really been able to tap into them very much. But I keep getting this feedback that I too have gifts. And I've said it on the show a million times. I'm trying to know what my gifts are. And I do feel like I'm a little bit better than most at picking up on other people's energy. Like I'll know right away a few things about somebody when they get into my space. I will say things in my head like, "Oh, they're not happy," or "Oh, I can even tell if somebody likes me or doesn't like me at the beginning." But I don't know how to lean into that and hone into that and make that even more make myself even more confident that I know what I'm talking about. I don't know.
Can let me respond to that? The key to it is feeling your feeling.
Mm.
The key to miracles, if you like, is feeling your feelings, and that comes in two parts. It is a level of deep honesty that comes in two parts. So one part is being very, very honest about what is so, which is essentially is a physical process. Essentially, it's breathing. Most people are trying not to feel what they feel most of the time. And that's why people are not that sensitive or that much in contact. Everybody can be, but you have to be prepared to feel what you feel. And most people don't like the way they feel.
Yeah.
And most people are fighting the way they feel. Well, there is a principle in this, in the world of woo-woo, that what you resist persists.
Yeah.
So your first trick is to feel what you feel. And I think you're good at that. I mean, you probably have a head start. The second thing is to be very clear about what you want. You put those two things together, you start to be able to do magic. And what anybody can do is to be psychic in the sense of feeling other people's feelings, but they have to feel their own first. And if they are in agony, they may not want to do that. But I'll tell you what, the pain is not in the feeling, it's in not feeling.
Yeah. That resonates with me a lot. Let's dive into my BaZi and what does it say about my health? Does am I going to be okay, Richard?
I'm I'm sure you will, but I would guess from your BaZi the issues are to do with fertility.
Oh, it's interesting you say that. It's interesting you say that. Well, I mean, I never I never had kids, but I never wanted kids. It was never something that I just was never interested in them. Like even when I was young, I didn't babysit. I mean, I've gotten through my life. I don't even think I've even changed a diaper. Like I'm just not that into kids. Having said that, I also am at the stage of my life where I can honestly look back and say it's not a regret that I have. I don't
Well,
think it was my path. I don't think it was my path. I live a very liberated life and it makes me feel happy. I don't feel empty for not having something outside me like to love. I feel very full.
as some Dorothy Parker said, a woman needs a man like a thick needs a bicycle.
Yes, exactly.
But what you raise is something very interesting. As I say, fertility would, on the basis of this, fertility is likely to be the issue. Not in the sense that you've got thousands of kids. It may as well be that you haven't got any, but it is
Yeah.
not a neutral issue. You're not easy come, easy go about it. And you've got two of these oxen who are very, very sensitive. It suggests that the things that you are the awarenesses you're finding in yourself have been with you since you were very small and are very important to who you are. But as I said, the first thing I said to you is you are the righter of wrongs. And if you're going to be out there fighting for the right, and being in the USA in 2025, there's probably plenty to do. You probably don't want to have children,
No.
and you are creating a platform where you can do it. I mean, I think we probably have to be careful not to go into politics here, but you are in a position where you can make a huge difference, and that sensitivity is so important. And perhaps it was a choice early on, possibly from your parents' example, that made you feel that you would use your sensitivity a very different way.
That's interesting. Another thing that keeps cropping up from I talk to a lot of mediums and psychics and people that have done my astrology chart and all kinds of things, and I get a lot of feedback as you're supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to be teaching people. You're a leader. You're going to have a big platform, and I keep hearing that. And my podcast is growing. It's not growing by leaps and bounds or anything. Having said that, the way in which this podcast has happened, it had a flow to me that just almost like the universe was helping me along. I literally just blew on this podcast and the doors like opened up for me.
You're obviously a natural. And the other thing about a metal horse is that you're neither introvert nor extrovert. You do what's necessary.
Mm. So what does my BaZi say? Like, does it say what my future holds? What can you tell me? Like, what's gonna happen to my show and me? Like, what do you think, Richard?
Well, the thing I think you will. I think it is in your hands. I think that you need to take the risk of concentrating on it more than you do.
Oh, that's such good advice. Like, I say that to myself all the time because I don't really treat it like a business. And I'm like, I got to start really focusing on where I want it to go. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Richard. But you just are, you're
The
just ringing all the bells.
things I wrote down about you from your BaZi was the righter of wrongs, because that's like a classic thing, but also that you are daring and you are romantic. Those are all in your BaZi. And it probably your success is a function of how daring you're prepared to be.
All right. So I'll say this about that comment. I had somebody on who was a destiny card reader, and one of the things that he's told me was you have fame energy, but you are going to need to be bold if you want to get where you're going. He said it is yours to lose is basically what he said. It's your
I agree
game to
with him.
lose.
I agree with
And
him. But
that's so interesting.
to answer your question about the future, I mean, and I don't claim to prophesy. I aim to, or to predict. I aim to forecast. And technically, a forecast has bits in it that might change. A weather forecast is required to be 70% accurate, for instance. And the point of forecasting is to see what looks good and what doesn't, and to take action to change the things that you forecast that are perhaps not what you want. But the way that your BaZi proceeds is that you hit peak visibility between you have the possibility of peak visibility. I'm really careful with this, between 30 and 60. And I'm far too much of a gentleman to give away your age, but you're closer to 30 than 60. But these opportunities, which are the characters of fire, which are about visibility. I mean, the Chinese elements are pretty easy to understand. When you're talking about wood meaning movement, and fire meaning heat and light, and you have a lot of heat and light here, which looks like it peaks probably late 40s, but looks like it persists probably into your 60s. Your best bet are years that are what I would call a yang a yang metal stem, which are years ending in zero.
Okay.
So I would tend to expect by the time of what we're talking about 2030, which is going to be a metal dog. I think that's a metal dog. Am I right? It's a metal dog. Unless I'm going bonkers, I think it's a metal dog. I would think 2030 is a peak time for you, because not only is the dog combines with the horse to make fire, so there's plenty of fame there, and your big fate has fame, but the yang metal. So the yang metal is about getting to grips with things. The yang metal has guts. The yang metal, I mean, I think you have a concealed, much harder edge, a cutting edge that is really important and inspiring. I would not be surprised if you became politically quite outspoken. But that's where you have to be daring. I mean, in all parts of the world, that's quite a terrifying thing. In this country, I mean, in the USA, I would think it takes tremendous, what we call bottle over here, to be prepared to be politically outspoken at these times. But my guess is you have to do that.
It's so interesting you're telling me this, Richard. Oh my gosh. I mean, I have been battling with about whether or not I want to dip my finger into that pond of politics, because it is such a I feel it is a barrier. Once you choose a side, you are lost to whoever is not on your side. I feel like it's super tribal. I feel like it's almost impossible for you to break through to somebody that is not maybe aligned with you politically, because they are so um, number one, they don't trust anything that's not outside their own bubble. There's no trust there. But it's exhausting to talk about politics, because people are just so um, incapable of seeing anything outside of what they've been programmed to think, feel, say, or do. Nobody even has their own talking points. They all just regurgitate what has been programmed by whatever they let seep into their eyeballs and in their ears. But I do feel an inner calling to step into that arena. I do. I don't know. You think I should? Oh gosh.
I think it was a decision for you to make for yourself. But
Yeah.
I think that fortune favors the brave, and
Yeah.
I think I would think your future was being prepared to be a little less charming, a little more hard edged. I was the most people are not interested in politics, and they're certainly not interested in listening to people arguing.
Yeah.
But all the global political problems at the moment, every single one of them, are a distraction from the major problem, which is climate change.
Yes.
Unless we learn to cooperate and to be a little less selfish, and to be to work together, we're going to be extinct in a few generations' time, and that kind of thing, that is beyond politics, and
100.
politics is a distraction from it. We all basically want the same thing. We go about it different ways, and some people have poor motives. But this is a time when humanity either decides to cooperate or not, and COVID was kind of a dress rehearsal for it.
I totally agree with you. I also, just to give you another like backing up of what you just said, um I also have sat down with another medium who has said to me, um, you have no idea what's in store for you. You are going to touch the world and teach them how to love each other. And I do feel that pull. I also feel a huge affinity for the environment, for the other species on this planet. And I am absolutely 100% on board with the fact that politics is a distraction, that they want to keep us divided. They want us to hate each other. They want us to think about anything else than how they're robbing us blind of not only our future, our resources, and nature in general, but we are tearing at the very threads and making us lose our own humanity over our ideology, the dogma, being attached to these talking points that are just not serving anybody. So, ooh, getting into politics is going to be
Said that beautifully. That was beautifully expressed. Um, to to quote someone I read on Substack, who I think is very, very interesting, is a trans philosopher called Margaret Killjoy, who is a wonderful writer. Check her out on Substack. She says decelerate conflict with all but the enemy. That's where you start.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love
So we
that.
don't disagree over the the I don't know whether or not we wear green or black, or whether or not we you know I don't know eat the same ice cream. These things don't matter at all.
Yeah,
What matters is saving the planet. The way we'll do it is by cooperating. And I think
yeah,
you had a big part in that. And I think your BaZi suggests someone who is being cultured to do that, who is being brought to that. And what's called your lifehouse, which is my first teacher, my Grandmaster Chan Kanwa, used to say that if your BaZi is a vehicle, then your lifehouse is the garage. It's where you come back to at night. So it's kind of where you're comfortable, and it is an elemental shape. Your pillar is a wood rabbit, which is a mother, and
mm,
it's their voice that speaks to you. And for some people, they should be listening, and some people they shouldn't, and they have to make up their own mind. But with you, it will be this question of whether you're a parent or not, and it will be this question of what being a parent amounts to. And you're a bit young at this point for that, if I may say that. Um, but you know, motherhood of the world is what that talks about.
yeah. That now a lot of this really it's hitting home. Let's. Is there anything else in my bazi that you feel that um I need to know in order to fulfill my destiny or whatever? I don't even know.
I think yes. Um, your each of the pillars has means lots of things. There are lots of ways to read them. You read them sideways, up, down, and so on and so forth. Um, but your hour pillar, that is the one that describes the moment that you were born, is a fire rat, and the fire rat is because the rat is water. Water is emotion. Water is communication. You might think of water as being criticism or appraisal. Fire is about inspiration, moving, brightness, attention, those kinds of things. There is tension between those things, which will be very visible in your 40s. And if you want more appraisal, you need more water. I mean, that can be literal hydration, but it also means being in the north. It means late at night. It means staying cool and so on and so forth. If you want more ideas, more inspiration, more passion, you'll need more fire, which means being in the south. It means concentrating on the middle of the day. It means wearing red. It means all sorts of things. But for you, it will be a question of tailoring your life to how much you want of which aspect of that. Because the more outspoken you are, the more you are likely to be at best appraised, at worst criticized. And you need to be ready for that. Am I prepared to say this thing because people are going to be upset? Or do I want to be much more careful about it? And in that process, you find a voice that more people will hear.
I will say this, you keep talking about this harder edge, and I absolutely have that. I through my spiritual awakening though, I feel like I've softened those edges. I have become more compassionate. I have become more soft to other people, how they feel, and I really have tamed my harshness down. But I could totally see myself wielding my personality in a way that would lead to me having the ability to speak my mind. I'm not scared. Let's just put it that way.
I think
I don't get scared very easily.
I think that's the future. Let me give you one piece of advice. Don't make enemies by mistake.
You can count on that. That's some good advice there, Richard. I mean, this was a very interesting conversation. So much of what you said resonated with me. You know, you've kind of given me a little bit of direction that maybe that what I'm feeling, I need to march in that direction, and that's supposed to be my path. Which
Let me
is
let me give you something reassuring. There are what are called special stars, which we calculate to indicate a deeper meaning of particular combinations of characters. You have in your day pillar, which is a metal horse, as I said, which is the righter of wrongs, which really will tend to be who you are. The yang metal being someone you don't mess with, and the fire being the horse being someone who has no problems being in the spotlight. But the special stars are what's called Tinduk and Yutduk. And those are stars that, Chinese people have been getting BaZis done for their children for 2,000 years because they know that it will tell them how they should study, what they're like, what they should eat, those kinds of things. They would kill for those two stars where they are in your BaZi.
I mean, are you saying I guess I have luck on my side if I march in the direction, if I blow in that direction, the doors are just gonna like burst
Something like that.
open?
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. To have both of those, Tinduk and Yuvduk, on your day stem is very unusual and very common. Yes, I'd say something like that.
I mean, you've given me so much to think about, and you've given me actually a little bit of confidence to kind of go in the direction that I'm getting pulled. And you're like the sixth person who said, like, this is your thing. You have to be bold and march forward with it.
How many do you
So
think?
I I know, I know. You're right. I think the one piece of my puzzle that I haven't been able to solve entirely is the health part of my life, which, to be perfectly honest, I probably would be out there on social media, out there on my face, out there talking to people a lot more if I felt better on a more regular basis. And I think that's what prevents me from being consistent with my drive to go to the next level, is because I will spend 2 to 3 weeks not feeling good. And when I don't feel good, I'm just kind of existing and I'm not doing anything to progress my life in the
Can I
direction that it needs to go.
can I say one more thing about that?
Please,
You're
please.
you're saying that your medical issues are preventing you from being more active.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that you're not wanting to be more active, creating your medical.
Oh my God. That's 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 possible. I mean, I almost feel like crying right now. It's so weird.
That doesn't mean that it's not real, and it doesn't mean that you didn't come by it perfectly honestly. I'm not saying you're pretending, and I'm not saying that you said, you know what, I'm going to get ill. But what I'm saying is that's the way that things work. That's the way they work that way round. And if you want to make the mark that you can make, and to heal and to bring love to people that you want to, what you need to do is to make that your purpose. And over time, I'm not saying this will happen miraculously. It's just as likely to happen by surgery and antibiotics and Christ knows what. But to address your medical issues as a barrier to your expression be the right way round.
That's interesting.
It's controversial.
No, it resonates with me, that's for sure. Um, Richard, like I feel like I went through a therapy session with you today in a lot of ways. Like you gave me a lot to think about, and I'm super grateful to have had you on the show. Let's before we wrap it up, number one, um, if people want to get a reading from you, do you do that? Do you do
Yep.
BaZi readings? Do you do that? How
Yes, I'll
how
do.
can people reach out to you to get their own reading and get their
Well,
life on track?
but first of all, they need to buy my book, I Talk to the Animals. And
Yes.
tomorrow is a very good day for them to pre-order it from Amazon. It's a very, very good date for me. But yes, I am doing BaZi readings all the time. I'm not hard to find on Google. I'm Richard Ashworth and Feng Shui. You put those into into Google. You put those into Facebook. Put them into LinkedIn. Put them into Blue Sky. Put them into Substack. Put them into Instagram. I'm on all those things. I'm
Oh
very,
wow.
very easy to find, and I'm doing this stuff all the time. And my purpose is to heal heartbreak and make dreams come true. And I'm prepared to do whatever's required to bring that about. And what I want to say about you is you've been very, very gracious. It's really easy for me to be a smart ass at your expense. It takes great grace to hear what I'm saying.
Oh, I mean, you are a light, my friend. I know you probably already know that, but you are a light out there, and I hope you I don't know why I'm upset. I have no idea why I'm upset, but you just said some things that resonated with me, and I'm very happy
Yes.
that you were giving me some insight because there's so many times where I'm looking for guidance, and I'm just kind of out there on my own. But anyways, Richard, your book is called I Talk to the Animals, The Definitive Guide to the Four Pillars of Destiny. It is going to be in my show notes. Please pick up this book. Reach out to Richard, get your own BaZi, and see what kind of illumination it will bring you for your life and where you're supposed to be. And Richard, thank you so
You,
much for coming on the Fate podcast. I really enjoyed this episode. I'd love to keep in contact. And if you ever want to come back on the show, we didn't talk about Feng Shui.
Buzzy is basically the feng shui of time as opposed to the feng shui of space.
Oh, I mean, that is so fascinating. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank Richard Ashworth for coming on the show today and giving me my own BaZi. It really gave me so much to think about, and I appreciate the time that you took to spend with me today, Richard. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, guys. We'll see you next week on Fate, from Atheism to Enlightenment. Journey well, everyone. And that is a wrap on this episode of Fate, from Atheism to Enlightenment. Richard Ashworth, ladies and gentlemen, he gave me an awful lot to think about, to consider. And he also gave me confirmation of things that I have heard from other mediums and psychics and astrologers say to me. You have fame energy. You're supposed to have a big platform. You're supposed to be here to teach people. It's I'm not going to say it's a lot of pressure, but it's a lot to think about, as far as, like, I don't know. I just came up with this idea of doing a podcast because I was having a spiritual awakening and I was learning all these new things. And I thought to myself, I want to talk about this. This is interesting. I was an atheist my whole life. I've completely changed my whole belief system. I've opened my mind into different perspectives of what the nature of reality is. I still don't think that we have been told our true history. I don't think we know what our true powers are. I think we all have powers. I think that mediums and psychics and whatever are just the tip of the iceberg. I think that all of us possess more senses, the sixth sense, whatever, more spidey senses, whatever you want to call them. I think we possess the ability to interpret our environments with a little bit more magical, mystical capabilities than what we've been taught. And I think we're supposed to be much more spiritual, much more reliant upon our higher selves. So when you start dancing along the lines of like spirituality and modern day science is starting to overlap in really interesting ways that mainstream science has not really started talking to the masses about. It's trickling out. More people are starting to understand something's not right. This doesn't make sense. And I think there's an awful lot of people out there saying our society doesn't make sense, that our institutions no longer make sense, our politics no longer make sense. And you know, politics is a whole nother thing. I used to be, I would have considered myself a pretty political person for a long time in my life. And since I've had my spiritual awakening and I understand a little bit more about the nature of reality, who we are, why we're here, I have pumped the brakes on even paying attention to politics because I think they're a distraction, just like so many other things are just a distraction. Sports, distraction. Movies, media, TV, distraction. They're distracting us from going within, from understanding who we are, from becoming who we were meant to be here on this plane, from awakening to the true nature. I mean, I could totally see myself going down that aisle and telling people to turn off the TV, that there is a level of programming that is happening not only in the States, but worldwide to get us to stop thinking about who we are here, here, and keep us thinking about external bullshit that doesn't matter. I mean, even our economic system is such a joke. It is a joke what they are thinking that we're just going to go along with, even with the economy is terrible as it is. It is set up only for a certain few to succeed, and everybody else is just going to be groundlings that are going to just be so living in a space of survival that they can't think themselves out of it because they're trying to figure out how they're going to pay a bill next month, or how they're going to get that medical procedure covered, or how they're going to get Sally a new pair of shoes for her basketball team, or whatever. It is distractions. If we didn't have the financial distraction in our life every day, you know how much brain power we would be freeing up in our lives? An immense amount. And we would be thinking about other things that truly do matter, like the air we breathe, the pollution that's going on, the lack of resources we're going to have, even when it comes to water in the next few decades. It's fucking hot. Everything's on fire. The water's dirty. There's so many other things going on in the world that actually matter. And the things that we're spoon fed, whether they be through the phone, through your computer, through your TV, is all a distraction. And I suggest you turn them off. I have, and it has really allowed me to see the earth, the way we treat each other, our politics, and what's really happening in a completely different light. And it makes you much less emotional because I look at it as a observer, not something that is happening to me per se, or I'm not feeling that I am disempowered by it. So I don't know. I could see myself walking in that direction. I definitely could. I have a voice. I'm pretty fearless. I'm pretty brave. I'm pretty freaking smart. And you don't want to mess with me in a lot of ways. I am like the sweetest thing that you will ever meet. Funny, kind-hearted. I am a righter of wrongs. I have a huge sense of what is right, sense of justice, and I've always acted on that my whole life. And I can see myself using this platform to try and awaken people to stop, pay attention to what really matters, tap into your inner navigation, your inner knowing, your inner sense of peace. And that is what is always going to lead you back to truth. It is not what you are listening to at church on Sundays. That's not going to get it. Sorry, folks. No offense. But even the religion in this country has become so extreme that it is a distraction and a detriment to you becoming who you were meant to be, in my opinion, especially if you're going to a church that doesn't allow women to speak or have a voice. I don't even know why there would be any women to even attend that type of church. That's not the way in which our world was intended to be set up. If anything, it's supposed to be a matriarchy, not a patriarchy, because women are emotionally intelligent. We are the true creators on this planet. We are the portal for the souls that incarnate here. What greater power in the planet is that? And we should have a much greater say in society today than we do. And we need to start addressing that issue more directly. And I am happy to go toe to toe with anybody who feels like women need to start taking a subordinate role in our world, because that is like led to a bunch of dum-dums following their dumb sticks around, paying attention more to their precious egos than doing what's right for humanity. And that's what women are here for, quite frankly. We are here to teach you men how it's done. All right. Well, that was a big mouthful. Pick up Richard Ashworth's book, I Talk to Animals, the definitive guide to the 4 pillars of destiny. Get your BaZing from him. I will put his information in the show notes. Figure out who you're supposed to be. I'm trying to figure out who I'm supposed to be as well. Let's figure it out together. Take this journey. Stay with me. He kind of inspired me to get back on the track and bring some more energy to the show and treat it more like it is my next incarnation. It's my next thing. It's my next journey. And I am going to start using my voice and speaking my truth. And I hope you guys are here for it, man. Come along for the ride. Anyways, gang, if you want to follow me, I am on Instagram at F.A.T.E. podcast. Share the show, rate the show, like the show, comment on this show, whatever. I would love to continue to grow and reach as many people as possible. And it starts with my audience. It starts with you guys. I would love to start being more interactive. And I kind of just got a new resurgence of energy to put forth into this show. I just feel like, okay, that is the confirmation I needed to like walk my path. So it's a little exciting, isn't it? Anyway, y'all, we will see you next week on Fate, from Atheism to Enlightenment. I'm super excited to see where this show takes us. And welcome to your fate, everyone. I'll see you next week. Journey well.